Greetings, brothers and sisters. It's day 2 of the Alec Baldwin being charged with manslaughter. And so we got a bunch of stuff to get to. I haven't looked it over yet, but I think it'll be interesting. And then I want to get to the World Economic Forum, the Disrupting Distrust presentation. I haven't watched that, but that, is all about the truth community. But let's start here with Fetterman Smash, because this happened.
So the way Giselle and I met was really kind of strange.
Well, that doesn't sound like you. So he married someone named Giselle, and this is their story.
I was actually working out of Newark at the time, and I happened to be at a yoga retreat, and it talked about this discarded city. It was this article that mentioned Braddock, and it said how
She looks like she'd be friends with Hilaria Baldwin.
it, built half of the world's buildings and bridges, and how the steel all came out of Braddock, and it gave so much to America and to all of us, and then it was discarded and left behind.
Braddock is awesome.
And that felt really sad, and it felt really lonely, and I came home and I kept thinking about this city, and something told me write a letter.
And she wrote me a letter.
She wrote him a letter.
And even back in 2007, it was kind of unusual to get like a handwritten letter. So I opened it, and she introduced herself and said, "Hey, I'd like to come visit."
Fetterman getting a visit from a woman.
And I was not quite sure what to make of it, but she put her business card in there, and
Did it say hooker on it?
I thought, well, she went to this time and effort to write a letter, so she certainly deserves at least a phone call just to say something nice.
So I wrote this letter to the borough, this kind of handwritten note saying, my background's in nutrition, nonprofit. I'd love to visit and do something, and I don't know what that looked like, but something told me write this letter.
Got her letter on my birthday.
It was a birthday present for Fetterman. Fetterman Smash.
And she ended up coming to visit in early October of later that year, and it just kind of went from there.
And that
Just went from there.
was, 8 years ago and 3 kids ago, and I showed up and kind of never left.
What if I never got that letter, or I didn't open it, or
It's all kinds of possibilities.
I didn't make that call, like how different my life would be, and it's one of those weird but true stories that
It's so weird. Everything about him is weird, but it's also true. His whole life is a weird story, but a true story.
just if one little thing would have not happened, we never would have met. So it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
One of the best things. Boom, there they are. The Fettermans. They're the Fettermans. So oddly enough, like often happens to me, I found the real video, the original video, because this one obviously has dubbed audio. So let's go to the real original video. Fetterman Smash. Fetterman lonely. Fetterman Smash. I was told by my MKUltra CIA handlers that this Uncle Fester-looking human ogre of a mayor had a bright political future in some sort of idiocracy dystopian world that was being created. So they told me I should go up there and seduce him. So I wrote him a letter. I sprayed it with some perfume and some lipstick and my pheromones and see what would happen because, I didn't know if he liked human women, but I was given my orders. Fetterman get letter from woman. Fetterman like woman. Fetterman smash. Fetterman smash. Fetterman want to meet woman. Smell woman's hair. Invite woman to office. Fetterman want to see woman. Fetterman looking forward to seeing woman. Woman coming to see Fetterman. Fetterman smash. Fetterman smash. When will Fetterman smash? Fetterman smash soon. So I met him in his office, and, I walked over, and he started groaning something about Fetterman smash. He said something like, Fetterman smash, Fetterman smash. So I took a couple of Percocets, and I let him mount me. Fetterman see woman. Woman walk in. Fetterman get boner. Fetterman like woman. Fetterman want to smash. Fetterman smash. Fetterman's got to smash. It's not the most pleasant situation. You know, he smells a little bit like salami and pond scum. Fetterman like woman. Woman like Fetterman. Fetterman need woman. Fetterman see woman. Fetterman want woman. Fetterman get woman. Woman give Fetterman baby. Baby say Fetterman smash. Baby say Fetterman smash. More baby say Fetterman smash. Get lots of baby. Fetterman like baby. Fetterman like smash. Fetterman like to smash. Fetterman smash things. So it's the age-old story of hooker meets ogre. Ogre becomes a politician, successful one, nationally for some reason. The American public gets dumber and dumber. And politician smashes Washington, D.C. It just, you know, it's such a heartwarming story. Okay, so let's go to the Alec P. Baldwin thing here. Prosecutors say they knew early on in the probe that the fatal Rush shooting would lead to charges. And so here's the prosecutor.
Baldwin with involuntary manslaughter, not something less.
Well, because it actually fits the statute, if you look at the statute, but he was actually the producer on this film. He was present on scene. He's an actor who's probably starred in 40-plus gun movies, so he's very familiar. And he said, I believe, in reports and interviews that he's very familiar with the use of guns. The gun was not checked by him or with the armor, which is standard protocol where you actually, you may not have to check it himself, but he's supposed to check it with her. And had he done that, and of course not pointed a firearm at somebody that you're, you know, rules of the firearm, you don't point a gun at somebody unless you're intending to actually shoot them. And he did all those things, which ultimately...
See, that's the thing that has screwed Alec from the beginning. Because everybody who's taken a firearm class and been trained in firearms, the first rule is, and the most important rule, is you always assume the gun is loaded. I mean, no matter how many times you've checked it or whatever it is. And so you don't point a gun at somebody, and certainly not pulling the trigger, right? Assuming that you think the thing is not loaded. And all of the stuff that Alec tried to, you know, weasel out of and say in his multiple interviews and his victim, you know, taking the victim stance and everything, was not going to undo that, right?
resulted in Helena Hutchins' death.
What tipped the scale and made this a felony case?
Well, to us, it was because the conduct overall by him and Hannah Gutierrez and David Halls was reckless.
There's been a lot of questions about how the weapon was fired. Alec Baldwin says he never pulled the trigger, that he
Here it goes.
just released the hammer of the gun. What did your findings come up?
Well, that he definitely pulled the trigger, and that's confirmed by the FBI report.
You
Boom. He pulled the trigger.
believe Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger
Yes.
and aimed it at Helena Hutchins?
Not intentionally, trying to hurt her or anything, but I believe his conduct was reckless, and he did do that.
Do you believe Alec Baldwin should go to prison?
It's not my call right now to believe whether he goes to prison or not. Our focus is to get justice for Helena Hutchins and to let everybody know that just because you're an A-list actor, you're not going to be above the law.
Why?
Boom. That's not good, Alec. He's not. He's certainly not an A-list actor anymore.
Why charge Hannah Gutierrez Reed?
Because she was the armorer on the set, and she should have been checking the bullets, checking the guns, checking everything multiple times, never handing it to anyone unless she had personally made sure that all of those bullets were actually dummies. And she clearly didn't do that here. There were also at least 5 other bullets found on the set.
Okay, so the issue here is, like she said, Alec was a producer, and he was in 40 movies with guns. Plus, his brother had a post up talking about how, and it's a now deleted post, but it's been archived. I covered it, and other people covered it. The brother posted how his dad was a marksman. Their dad was a marksman in the Marines, and had won like competitions and taught the kids about gun safety. And they were, they would go out shooting, and when they were kids. So Alec grew up around guns and then all the Hollywood stuff. And there's just no excuse for him, right? But it was his behavior in the interviews and on Instagram, I mean, that's what really just put the nails in his coffin. I mean, I don't know about the prosecution here. Here's something from the New York Post. Alec Baldwin refuses to accept blame for rush shooting that killed Helena Hutchinson. Of course, there was that interview by an ABC News. I was going to go back and show you the clips, but I'm not going to do that now. Maybe I'll do that later in another video. But it was his fake crime, his blaming her. Like he blamed her for being in front of his bullet. And it was him acting like a victim that, and it was that he was deposing himself. Like there was a lawyer I saw, I don't know if I shared some of that video or not, but it was a YouTube, lawyer on YouTube who talked about how Alecs was basically deposing himself. He was saying things that you would ask in the deposition, and he was incriminating himself, both in terms of this type of a legal jail time court case and a civil suit from the husband. And he just kept on talking. And I said all along, just stop talking. I mean, about all their stuff. His wife's fake accent, I mean, all of it. They need to just stop talking. Like you've already damaged your brand and you're just, what are you doing? Like for dopey Instagram fans and things, trying to clear your name with the public. Like, people don't like you. The Trumpers hate you because of all the stuff you did with Trump and, the right wingers and all your political stuff and, kind of narcissistic and arrogant and all these things. Just stop talking. But the guy just wouldn't shut up. And he kept on burying himself even deeper into this thing. Hilaria Baldwin sports stone cold glare after charges in Alec Rust shooting. So there she is in a sweatshirt, a hoodie, strangling one of her kids. And there she is, looking sad and bummed out, and somebody's pointing her direction to where she can visit her husband in the slammer. And she's wearing a shirt that says human on it. She has a sweatshirt that says human. She's a human being. She's human, just a simple girl, Spanish girl from Boston, Spain. Some more pictures here. I don't know what that is. Twists and turns that led Alec Baldwin being charged in the Rush shooting. On-set complaints before the shooting. Remember, they were not being paid. I mean, this is Alec's ego still trying to make movies and on a shoestring budget, right? He was already, his career was basically over. He'd gotten old and he just had jumped the shark. He was making these low-budget movies. Some of them involved guns. He made a movie called Pixie that was shot in Ireland. He played a priest. There was a lot of gunplay in that. And these are not, high-budget movies. And he hired a 25-year-old who really didn't have any experience and wasn't qualified to be an armorer. And the inexperienced armorer, here it is. A production source on the Nicolas Cage movie The Old Way, filmed before Rust, described young armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed as a bit careless with guns, waving one around every now and again, and said she handed a gun to a child actress, forcing the crew to intervene. And so this this is a young lady who really wasn't qualified to do this job. They brought live ammo onto the set, and I mean there's all those things. There's those live bullets, and then Alec Baldwin just being a total tool. Remember when he said he didn't know it was that she had been shot? He thought she had like a stroke or something. He didn't know she fainted. He didn't know she had been shot, even though the gun went on. Like when you fire a gun, like, and so there's so much BS involved, and I mean it just collapsed on him. Alec Baldwin could face 5 years in jail over Rush shooting. There he is with his Spanish wife from Boston. And, I mean, we'll see what happens here. But his career's over, and He looks just like such a tool. So I briefly want to go back to his Instagram page. Nothing new from the yesterday. And here's Hilaria's Instagram page. You know, her and her kids, and she hasn't posted anything. Of course, she has this Witches Anon podcast where she claims to be a witch, and they're all part of a coven. Here's her latest plug. Urologist and sexual health expert Dr. Jennifer Berman joins Hilaria and Michelle in the coven to dispel myths and remove taboos surrounding the powerful force that is the female body. Joining them in the coven, they touch on everything from hormone imbalances to setting the record straight about vaginal rejuvenation and diving into what actually accelerates the aging process. They're diving into this, this witch-like stuff about witches and their rejuvenation of their vaginas. Male reindeers lose their antlers in winter, and females don't. So Santa's sleigh is actually pulled by a team of women. Fetterman. Of course it is. Female deer don't have antlers, right? What are you talking about? But her whole thing is, she has this weird anti-male competition, and how, it's a whole feminist thing, but it's very deep with Hilaria. But now she's left with they're 8 kids. They're blonde kids, really blonde kids, pale skin, blonde, with Spanish names, right? And, an aging husband that may be in the slammer for a couple of years and has no career left. We'll see how long this marriage lasts. So I've been covering Alec and then Hilaria now for, years. And it started because he used to have these vicious, what he thought were takedowns about Trump. And I'm not a Trumper, never voted for him. And Trump, has been a disaster lately. Like, he went from an interesting character in the story, in the show, a really great character in the show, what I call the show, right? And then he just has gotten pathetic over the last couple of years. But I realized that Alec's obsession with Trump, and this is when I started covering the Trump obsession in the media, that Alec's obsession with Trump had to do with his imitation of Trump were exaggerated mannerisms that he himself did and things that he thought and did, right? They're very similar in their narcissism. Like, Trump doesn't make ducky lips, but Alec made ducky lips in his SNL imitation of Trump. And that's not a Trump. It was a horrible imitation. He didn't sound like Trump. He didn't really act like Trump. And the jokes weren't funny. Saturday Night Live sucks so bad now. Like, it's embarrassing. And so he was, projecting his own hatred of himself and the kind of person he is, the selfishness, which was exhibited by the shooting, because he handled the shooting the same way Trump would, blaming everybody but himself, right? Like, that's how Alec is. And then, not that other people and all of us, being able to handle something like that is difficult, but there's no sense of remorse, and him just going out and shamelessly trying to make himself the victim of the thing. And it was just a disaster. But his stupidity, I'll show the memes at the end of this thing, but he just kept on saying over and over the word shoot and shooting. And he just, did all these things and said all these things that just brought everyone's attention back to what he had done. And he just wouldn't stay off social media because they need to be fed, right? They can't, these celebrities and someone like this, they just can't go away. They had money. They should have just disappeared. The best thing you can do, people are going to make up their minds one way or another, and you disappear until the Santa Fe, Department of Justice, right? The district attorney decides what to do with you, right? And, maybe it's a distraction. Who knows what the reasoning is behind this. But other than that, you go live your life outside the public eye because it's over, right? Your celebrity status, now you're just infamous. You went from being famous to infamous, and your wife has taken you down. Like everything went south for that guy when he married. I mean, she's in there talking Spanish to her kids with a Spanish accent, and she's from Boston. She was raised as a white girl, a rich, privileged white girl who was a daughter of a doctor in a business. One of them's a doctor, one of them is successful in business, and they were affluent Bostonians, and she was Hillary Thomas, right? Hillary Hayward Thomas. Two very Anglo names. She doesn't have a drop of Spanish blood, and for whatever reason, she did this persona, and she's still doing it. Like, she's been caught, and she's still doing it. It's like madness. Alec's still going along with it. But even before that, he was starting to slide, and, now he is where he is. So let's roll the memes. These are all the memes I have of him saying things that reference the shooting, or, I'll do the one where he blames Putin and all of it. So here we go. This is a homage to Alec B. Baldwin.
I don't wake up and look in the mirror and go, oh, there he is. Ooh, you. Trump is alone. Trump is an anomaly. Trump is a maniac. Message to say how sorry I was and shooting famous cinematographers. And then the gunshot, as you all know, the cinematography. Message to say how sorry I was and shooting famous cinematographers. I want to apologize. I'm sorry that Vladimir Putin has effed with me again. Click with, I don't know what words to use today, but if they click with them. Isn't marriage a gunfight sometimes? I'd light up a couple usually when I was working, because I'm so nervous when I'm shooting to get the job done. When I was shooting, or just stupid behavior. When I'm shooting.
So the thing is that as much as the Democrats say they want Trump in jail, Alec Baldwin has a much better chance of spending time in jail than Trump. I wanted to get some clips of Alec Baldwin, some of the videos I've used before where he was imitating Trump, just to go in the background here when I do my audio stuff. And I looked through the videos I had on my channel with the name Alec in it, and there was 108. So 108 Alec Baldwin videos, or at least videos that included him on this channel, and I don't know how many on the other. And, not a proud moment. But it's been like a long road to watching this guy crumble. It's all about, for me, the apocalypse and the collapse of things that I cover so frequently on this channel, the collapse of the current system, and Alec Baldwin being one of these sort of, A-list people, famous people, rich and famous person, right? Hollywood actor and glamorous, all this stuff. But they say they really want Trump in jail. And I doubt we'll ever see that. I doubt we'll see it with Alex Jones either. But they're not protecting him. The liberal, mob. He was such a endorser of liberal politicians, and he interviewed politicians and pimped for them and gave them lots of money. And I mean, he did all kinds of things for the Democratic Party and the liberal media. And he worked for NBC for years. He had a contract with NBC, 30 Rock, and SNL, and these, whatever it was, right? He was a member of their club, and his wife had whatever she had with the appropriating the culture, but he didn't do anything to the liberals, right? I understand why the Republicans are mad at him and the Trumpers, but the liberals, he was nothing but a good soldier for them. And Santa Fe, New Mexico is a very liberal place. I lived there for a bit, and there's Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and the New Mexico, they call it the land of enchantment, but the people who live there call it the land of entrapment. There's this element to it, right? And there's these places in the West, like there's a place called Boulder, Colorado, and some of these other places, Sedona in Arizona, that are places where liberals go, trust funders often, rich California kids whose parents were really wealthy Californians or people out west or even in New York and other places like that. And they have a trust fund and they go to live in these places, right? Santa Fe is one of them. It's the capital of New Mexico. Albuquerque's at 5,000 feet and Santa Fe's at, I think, 7,500. And it was where my first two kids were born, Anna and my older son. And, there's a lot of things that happened for me there. I worked in Los Alamos in a counseling center for kids, and that was a weird place, right? Very interesting geographically. I've lived in the West twice. That was the first time right after I started doing Sahaj Marg for a couple of years. I moved to New Mexico, and I worked as a preceptor there for a bit. And then I eventually moved back to the West when I came back from India this last time in 2016 and lived in Nevada and Utah. I prefer Utah, I think, is my favorite state out there. But there are some really cool and interesting and funky places in the West. America is a beautiful country. I mean, the world, there's some beautiful places, but America has lots of them, right? Tropical islands, and then, tropical places like Florida, and then lots of coastline to major oceans, and then deserts and mountains and all these things, right? I mean, a lot of countries have them, a lot of continents have those things, but America has all that and a great deal of fresh water with the Great Lakes, and there are just beautiful places everywhere. But anyways, when I lived in New Mexico, as a kid, I had a fascination with the Native American culture, and I hoped to connect with that when I went to New Mexico, and I really didn't because, I knew some Native American people, and there was a professor at my place where I got my master's degree, so there was some level of that, but the cultures were very split off, right? What I was told was that Santa Fe had a choice, it was the capital, to either build the college there, University of New Mexico there, or build a prison. They built a prison because they thought it would mean more jobs. And University of New Mexico went to Albuquerque, and so Albuquerque was the much bigger city. Like Albuquerque had, I think, close to 1 million people, and it was just a bigger, and had a bigger sort of footprint as well. But Santa Fe became a place where there was 1/3 like white, very liberal people, 1/3 Hispanic, and 1/3 Native American. And the cultures really didn't mix as much as you would think. And it was quite separate, quite segregated, at least when I was there, years and years ago. Although I think, it's a kind of a blue state, New Mexico. It's a swing state, but Santa Fe is a very liberal city, right? It has a lot of influence in California. They're filming movies out there, right? All these things. I mean, they have some Hollywood influence. A lot of those people are there that are, wealthy, famous Hollywood people have properties in those places. And they just rang Alec Baldwin up like it was nothing, right? I mean, they're going for as much as they can get out of him. They're coming down hard on him. And it's amazing how quickly they threw him under the bus for doing absolutely nothing but be a good soldier for the Democratic Party and the liberal community. In terms of him going to jail, like he's already suffered quite a bit. And I don't know, what accountability he has for this woman's death in terms of, he's going to pay money. He's already had to sell a property and a house. I mean, it's going to probably bring the end of his marriage, I think, maybe a shorter death, the end of his career. He's, he's basically shamed, he's a canceled person in Hollywood, and all these things. And, I don't think he'll serve any jail time, maybe something small, be reduced sentence, and he'll pay a fine. And I don't know, like, in terms of, I don't like to get into judging people based in the little I know of them in terms of what they deserve, because I believe in a divine system that you get consequenced, good or bad, for everything that you do, right? Everything that you do comes back around to you. And so whatever he gets, he gets. Like, I don't have a stake in it. Certainly I've invested a lot of time in, mocking the guy. And if he goes to jail and whatever it is, it's going to be, he's not going to be on Instagram. So that's all. I've got all these memes. But in terms of, what he deserves, I don't. So this is disrupting distrust, and I heard Brian Stelzer mention it in the following. He did a follow-up little whatever thing. I don't know what they call this thing, some sort of presentation or think tank type of thing. And this is all about them recognizing that people have lost trust and faith in them, and their brand has been more or less destroyed, at least in the people who are kind of active on the internet and the so-called truthers and right-wing people, right? And so it's like, how do they get rid of that? How do they bring trust back into their, where the people trust them again? And not just the World Economic Forum, but all of these people, right? All of these groups, the UN, the World Bank, the WHO, the governments, and just, people like Bill Gates, all these people. How do they create trust again? And so I haven't watched it yet, but I know they're going to go about it the wrong way, right? And so let's get into it here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And thank you to the World Economic Forum for hosting this important discussion. I'd especially like to thank Louise, Giannis, and Madeline for making sure this panel could happen.
Woo! They're awesome. Woo!
I'm Katie
Give it up for them. Woo!
Kingsbury. I oversee the opinion section at the New York Times. In my role, I work with the columnists, editorial board, columnists like Tom Friedman, Maureen Dowd.
They're great. You're gonna rock this thing. You guys, another failed enterprise, right? Something where it's moving away from, all these people, the New York Times and all these types of,
Brett Stevens that you read in our pages
sit down, bro.
every day, the editorial
Sit down, boop.
board, as well as the outside experts and thinkers that the Times publishes, many of whom are here at this meeting today.
New York Times rocks.
In the next
See, the New York Times is like CNN. They don't know how to regain trust, right? Because people are moving in the exact opposite direction of the mainstream news, right? Like, it's the old people still watch it. Young people, they don't, they've never been indoctrinated to it, and they have no faith in it, right? They have a different way of getting their information. It's through independent people on the internet. That's the whole problem. And so you don't get the people who have lost the war to host a solution.
45 minutes, you will hear from these impressive panelists. You can tell how much they respect you as an audience because they've all changed their shoes.
Bring in a laugh.
Well, maybe not Richard.
One pair.
Yeah.
You're watching people's shoes? That's not going to bring a new trust into your...
They're going to provide us all some context and
Committed to improving the state of the world.
Experience that speak to the issues confronting us as we try to build trust as a key pillar in multi-stakeholder cooperation across government, businesses, and civil society. But first, a few introductions.
Okay, so trying to build trust, you don't do it by disrupting distrust, right? That's a negative. That's a negative goal. Like, I've talked about this before. You always make your goals positive. You always word them positively. You want to accomplish something, you think about what you want to do, which is build trust. Disrupting distrust means that there is some sort of element, we know what it means, which is there is, the internet, and there is people who don't believe in the official story, and they're all, disparaging you and your brand, right? Your this New York Times brand, the World Economic Forum brand, governmental brands, right? All of it. And so they're trying to disrupt that. They're trying to stop a counter story to their, what they call their official story, right? They're the people in power. And, if you're going to do that, you're going to fail. You're going to fail epically.
I'm going to read them because I want to make sure I get them right. Richard Edelman is the CEO of Edelman, a global communications firm responsible for the annual Edelman Trust Barometer.
Boom. He knows about trust and trust barometers.
In its 22nd year, the report
It's your face, Neil.
covers a range of timely and important societal indicators of trust
Look, he isn't even by his own stick.
amongst businesses, media, government, and NGOs, shaping conversation and setting the agenda for the year ahead. Angela Williams, President and CEO of United Way Worldwide.
United Way.
United Way Worldwide is a network of nearly 2,000 nonprofit organizations raising funds from its community that are distributed through a bottom-up approach. Salah, tell me.
Don't know her name.
Salah, thank you. Is a senior vice president for social impact at
You skipped somebody.
MasterCard, an expert in financial inclusion and the use of technology for social impact. She currently leads MasterCard's $500 million pledge to close the racial and wealth and opportunity gap. Helena is Director General of Consumers International. Her organization represents consumer advocacy groups in various countries to ensure everyone has access to safe, sustainable products and services, ensuring customers are treated fairly and that.
Wow. So this panel is somehow going to disrupt distrust.
Businesses are trusted. Thank you all for being with us today.
You're welcome. Oh, you mean them.
I'd like to start with you, Richard. If you can
You starting with the dude to mansplain it to us?
provide us with a little bit of context for this conversation, what are the latest trends that you're seeing in terms of trust?
Okay, so to set a stage, we've done this 23 years. We do it in 28 countries, 32,000 people. We did the survey in November, so that's the data. Now, long-term trends. One, NGOs for years were the most trusted institution, well ahead of business, media, and government.
And what now?
That changed in 2020 when it became government at the height of the pandemic. Since then, it's been business. That's fact one. Fact two, the growing mass class divide in opinion. It started in 2012 in the US, in France, and in the UK. It's now metastasized. I'll give you data on that.
Give us some data, Richard.
But it's now in 3/4 of the countries, more than 10% difference between the attitudes of the top 25% and the bottom 25%.
Boom.
The third is the battle for truth, which you do every day. But the
battle for truth. There isn't a battle for truth. Truth is truth, right? There's levels of truth. But it's, what he's saying, it's the battle for who gets to say what's the truth. And we know the government, the official story, they have the power to say this is the truth. But then people don't believe it. So it's not, you have to get people to also believe it, right? You might have the authority, but you don't have the belief. People on the internet are much more convincing. They don't have the authority, and sometimes they just make stuff up, but they're the ones that the people more readily believe, right? People get their information from other people like them on the internet.
reality is that people feel as if they don't have enough information that's quality to make good decisions. And that's really become problematic since 2016, since the US election, since Brexit, but then we're now at a sort of different level of this with disinformation because of the pandemic. And I think
the disinformation that's been out there because of people, and the government's never put out disinformation.
The sort of last point is
how about some numbers? Like, what percentage of people distrust, and what does that mean? What are the institutions' ratings in terms of the amount of trust they receive from people? What percentage do they trust the people in the organizations, right? I mean, he's just talking in generalities here.
Trust is gone local. Historically, as a Jew, I always say this, it's the Moses model, top down. Some people say it's the Jesus model. However you want to do it, it's fine, top down. Then it went horizontal about 10 or 15.
Those are our two choices, Jesus and Moses.
15 years ago with the rise of Facebook, went to peers, friends. Now trust is local in my employer and in my company and my CEO. My company's newsletter is the most trusted source of information, even ahead of mainstream media. Crazy as that is. Okay.
Yeah, you're just so trusted.
Okay, so 3 or 4 trends from this year that are important. The first is we absolutely observe an imbalance between institutions. Between government and business, there is now a 50-point delta on competence, 30 points on ethics. Business is the only institution seen as both trusted because it's competent and because it's ethical. It gets things done.
Yeah, exactly. Businesses will never do anything distrustful.
NGOs have moved from being in that top right corner, both competent and ethical, to being ethical but not competent. I have more about this for you later, but that's a very sad fact for my colleagues. I'm sorry, I just tell you the data.
He's just like Fauci. He's the Fauci of trust.
You can hit me later. But I'm running fast.
Because you got better shoes on.
The second big finding is that we see a real dependence on business to be the...
Okay, so I'll move forward here. Okay, so this gets very boring. I'm not going to cover, this is one part here. But this happened.
I want to take some questions from the audience. Jonathan? Hold on one second, there's a mic.
My name's Jonathan Greenblatt. I'm the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League.
Okay, so I covered this guy recently to do with the Kyrie Irving extortion and that brutal stuff to do with Kyrie and Kanye, right? And this guy, I didn't know much about the Anti-Defamation League, but, there was a Jewish newspaper, an Israeli newspaper, that covered how the Anti-Defamation League will go after a group or a person, and they will basically get that person to give them a donation. Like Kyrie Irving gave him $500,000. And that is their way of, it's like extortion, in the world of cancel culture, very sleazy, right? And so they're all players. Like, these are the people in the audience. They're all players in this, big business, big world economic players.
So I have a question for Richard and maybe for others on the panel.
Maybe for others. Richard mostly, because that's the one.
So when you talk about business being the most trusted sort of entity or sector, and then just a moment ago you talked about sort of the right wing disenfranchising NGOs, it seems like we're seeing a trend in the U.S. of now the right wing.
Again, nobody disenfranchised anybody. You guys misbehaved. The UN has been responsible for so many wars. They invaded Gaddafi after he was about to achieve their Millennium Development Goals. He had done a tremendous job in Africa, according to the UN Millennium Development Goals that were supposed to be reached by 2015, and he was on track to achieve all 8 of them. He turned the poorest country in Africa into the richest country in Africa. And they went and destroyed him, right? Ordered America and other countries to go in and destroy Gaddafi and loot his country, right? America was more than happy to do it, as were the other NATO, whatever they were, allies there. And so the England came out and Parliament wrote a report about how BS it was, how it was, complete lie and fabrication. And for them to constantly be putting this on us, instead of saying you are not trustworthy, admitting they're not trustworthy, you've lost trust because when people look deeper into your, they look beyond your false presentation as a ruling class, as a people with money and power, and, these institutions and individuals behind the institutions. When we look through your hype and your spin and your marketing and behind the curtain, we see that you're not trustworthy, right? Everybody lies, and you guys are better at it. You guys are doing it on a much bigger scale. I'm talking about all the people who, these countries and institutions that run the world. And instead of, and I said this in my other video, instead of them trying to win back trust and become the kind of people that we could trust, they want to destroy any counter movement, any alternative media, anybody questioning their greatness, right? And their trustworthiness.
Going after big business in particular, like ESG is the new CRT, if you will, and has become, I've heard people here at Davos tell me they're no longer, Fortune 50 people, they're no longer using the phrase ESG because it's too poison, too toxic. So Richard, looking at these trends, do you think that big business will get knocked off as well? And that seems very complex in an environment where we're thinking in multi-stakeholder frameworks with business at the center.
So my response, Jonathan, is business needs to stand its ground. More than 2/3 of employees say that they want to work for companies whose values are equivalent to their own. 2/3 of consumers are belief-driven buyers. 80+% of people in institutional shareholding want to be with companies that are endorsing ESG. The one thing you have to do, though, is have one standard for ESG, not 180. You get picked off if you have too many different standards, and it's something that they can demagogue as opposed to own. Also, business has to be very clear about this is good business, not, some kind of woke delusion. That we're
Woke delusion? What is this woke delusion that you speak of?
in business to make money, but it also is going to serve society. And focus your attention on 4 issues: sustainability, on jobs and reskilling, focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and geopolitics, like get out of Russia. But don't take on every issue. On abortion, because I know this is important, you absolutely have to provide medical care for your employees. And
So everything he says is going to be for liberals. All the points he said, you got to stand your ground and don't cave to the conservatives and the religious people and the truth community. So that's what he's saying. Don't cave to them. Stand your ground and back the agenda. This video is running late. I want to get to the Greta thing and the one JoJo Biden. There's a bunch of stuff with JoJo. We'll go multiple gaffes coming up. Let's save those for 2 days from now, or maybe I'll put them on my other channel. Probably not, though. Probably here in 2 days, which will be Sunday, unless something huge happens. But I'm running out of time. I got to go make dinner and other stuff. But I just want to wrap this thing up here. It goes on, and the majority of it was very liberal. So what they were talking about regaining trust, it was to do with the woke culture and the liberal culture, right? They do not care about the right wing and the conservatives, and they're just dismissing them as something that they can, eradicate. The ESG is environmental, social, and governance. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Investors are increasingly applying these non-financial factors as a part of their analysis process to identify material risks and growth opportunities. I'm all about the environment. I think the environment needs to be, in terms of human civilization or the environment, I choose the environment, even though I'm dependent on human civilization. We are destroying this planet. So you have a different view than, the truth community has been so contaminated by Alex Jones, which I covered, yesterday, I guess it was, that the video was put up yesterday morning. But he was, it's this movement that has contaminated some things that are actually truth or good. The problem is when these corporate giants and the UN and all these, UN has this public and private partnerships, PPPs, which was part of the Human Development Goals, where government would sell its, would have a joint, like own a bridge with a corporation or a national park like the Grand Canyon. I just talked about this in another video. But when they talk about the environment, it's going to be climate change. It's going to be, stuff that has already been spoiled. And we'll get into Greta in a moment, her thing, which is kind of funny, fake arrest. And it's just, and the right wing and the truth community just isn't buying this stuff anymore. You guys are about making money. Like, I don't care that you're about making money. And I don't care that you're about lying, because it's your job at this point. The system is a lie, right? That's the problem with everybody. You think that the system is in some ways pure at its base, and it's not. It's corrupt at its base, right? Its foundation. In the Sahaj Marg system, Babaji, he wrote this, second master of the system, wrote this brilliant book called Reality at Dawn. And in a chapter entitled My Vision, he talks about how the future world, the upcoming world, would be built with spirituality as its base. A foundation of each person having an internal connection with God. That everybody who will be existing in the future world will have to have an internalized connection with God, or they'll just be, they won't be able to function in the system, right? Right now, our system rewards for being a sociopath and being a narcissist and being greedy and being selfish and having a killer instinct. If you have all those things, you can do really well in this present paradigm, right? And so this system has to go, and there has to be a new one. You can't do anything about it. You can't fix a system that's built on a foundation of lies, deception, debt is wealth, all these things. I've talked about this forever. But until then, they need to keep it going. And, we're all dependent on it. It'll collapse when it collapses. And until then, these deceivers need to keep it going. So I don't care. I'm not all, I get less and less concerned about the people who control the system. I'm not, they're doing what they have to do in this paradigm. And it's evil, sure. Are they going to suffer consequences? Sure. We all will to some extent, right? Because we're going in the wrong direction. We're going away from our soul's path, and we're being pulled down to a lower level of existence. But this forum, in terms of these, what was it? What was the thing again? This ESG, of course people aren't going to believe you, right? And so what they're trying to cater to is the woke. Like all the other people, the 3 women on the panel, we're trying to cater to the loss of trust in the liberal community. And they're discounting the right wing as just being stupid, crazy, and, And so if you start from that standpoint, that means they're going to have to make everybody else knuckle under, whatever. They're going to have to suppress your ability to express yourself and, any power that you might have. Take away your wealth, anything that you might have, your collective wealth, middle class, upper class Americans, because they just want to eradicate those ideas, right? Where you have suspicion about the level of the, depravity that these guys live with. And, in terms of my view, the system's going to collapse before any of that really happens. Like it's just going south really quickly. We can all see it. All right, let's get into the JoJo Magoo thing and the stuff with Greta. Okay, so this is the Golden State Warriors visiting the White House. And they are coming in. There's the owners. There's Klay Thompson. There's Kamala and JoJo Magoo blocking the photo. And so, trying to figure out. And then Joe does this. Woo! Look at how humble he is. Woo! Look at him. He gets his smirk on like he just rocked it. He's such a doddering old fool. And and then watch Kamala. He said, "I'm not doing that." She said, "I'm not doing that." She's not kneeling. She just makes some room for herself over here. Boom. Look, he's the only one kneeling. Look at big thumbs up here. Just an absolute tool, right? And Kamala with the big thumbs up. This is their photo moment. And then number 1, apparently she's a Warriors fan. Okay, so Greta Thunberg. Remember her? She's starring in one of my favorite memes I have here. Let's play that here.
How dare you?
You just got Greta rolled. She gets fake arrested, much like sad dumpling Amy Schumer. So they're posing for photos. She's got a smile. They're all over there, smiling. And look at she's struggling. Look at these 2 guys. They got to manhandle her. These 2 guys who are laughing and they're posing for all these photos. And they're going to drag her out of here. Look, they got to drag her out of here. Look, they got just can't pick her up and carry her out because she's such a tough. Carry me, slaves, right? Like, what is she, royalty? Yeah, she won't budge. We have no choice but to carry her out. The policia. But it shows here as a video even more so. German police are accused of staging photos. First they're standing there up with her, smiling. This fake protest, and all this stuff. And, they come over here. Got over here. There's, they're going, make sure to get some photos, get some publicity. Here they are. There's the same thing over here. Greta. And it's just so fake. Like, there they are smiling and hanging out. And, she needs to be manhandled because she's such a physical threat, right? They're holding hands, smiling. This guy's joking, laughing around. Hey, let's. Protesters say expanding the mine will mean Germany will miss its climate goals. There she is cracking up. She's such a criminal. There they are walking nicely through the mud before they have to pick her up, escorting her off. Talk about white privilege, right? I don't know. I feel like weird today. Like, not bad, but just like, I don't care. I mean, it's a clear day where I just feel like, F it, it's raining outside. I had to go do some outdoor work. It's been cloudy and just wet, and it's getting cold. I talked about my cows. I'll do an update on my cows maybe on my other channel. We have a new plan, and it's just also pointless, right? I mean, all of it. Just, the truth community, the mainstream stuff, certainly. I mean, it's just pointless, right? Like, it just humans, I mean, we just suck so bad right now collectively. And I mean, it's hard for me to, I see good things, and of course there's good people, and there's quality artistic work that's done, and there's, beautiful things in our civilization and a great, natural world. It's not like it's all negative, but it's just like people's overall mentality and, what we expect, what we think we're entitled to, and what, the powers that be are willing to do to save the system. I mean, that's what this is all about. Like, how far will you go to keep the system going? Like, how low will you go? Like, what are you willing to do to keep the system going? What insane stuff are you willing to do? And, it's going to get pretty bad, I think. I think it's going to be pretty low. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely born from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day. I had to edit out my yawn there. I couldn't even make it. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.